Join me inside my writing yurt. Come on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask Cozy Grammar. This is our special session for our friends in Asia and the Pacific. We have questions from India, from Indonesia, and from Malaysia today, and I'm very excited to address them. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with a question from Taranindya in Indonesia, who was the first person in the waiting room and on the call, for which I thank you. And she asks, how can a 10-year-old child or kid love grammar as much as she is eager to read books? Now, I think this is a wonderful question. Here, presumably, we have a kid who loves to read books and maybe is not as excited about grammar, which I think is totally natural and totally understandable. And the first thing to do is to celebrate the fact that she loves to read books and is eager to read books, because that, in fact, is one of the most important foundations that we have for grammatical knowledge and knowledge about language more generally. Because by reading books, we put ourselves in the company of good grammar, good language, in the context of writers and of writing, and of people who spend a lot of time thinking about words and the power of words, the world of language and the world of storytelling. In contrast to books and to stories, grammar may seem rather boring. So the answer is to show how grammar doesn't have to be boring at all. So in thinking about these questions, I thought of three main points or ideas. First, it can be very helpful to connect reading to a playful exploration of grammar. And when we think of grammar, people often think about grammatical rules. You say this, you don't say that. And rules in particular can be quite intimidating and unfortunately quite boring. So don't start with rules. I would start instead with important grammatical terms like nouns, adjectives, and verbs. Very simple but important terms with which we use, terms that we use to speak about language. Then you can find a book or a story and simply begin exploring, how does this writer use adjectives? How does this writer use verbs? How does this writer use nouns? Part of what makes a book come alive is how skillfully a writer uses things like adjectives, nouns, and verbs. And without necessarily starting with all of those things, just start with one. One of my favorites is to start with adjectives. How does a skillful writer use adjectives? By setting the question of what an adjective is into the context of a story, into the context of writing, we can start to see, because this writer knew about adjectives, knew the power of a well-placed adjective, their writing becomes vibrant. Of course, the word vibrant itself is an adjective. And then you can move on to verbs, which is also a very important exploration, because good writers, writers that capture our attention and our imagination, often make particularly skillful use of verbs, and not just verbs like am or is or are or were, but unusual verbs like articulated or slither or meander, to take a few verbs that pop into my head in this very moment. Even in the advanced study of language, the study of a poet and dramatist like Shakespeare reveals a writer who knew how powerful verbs can be. But of course, you don't have to start there. You can start right with the books that your kid already loves to read, and very gently, step by step, explore how that writer uses things like verbs and adjectives and nouns. And then the next step, second step, is to connect grammar with creative writing. So that rather than looking at grammar as a set of rules that you have to follow or something you might have to learn for a test, think instead of grammar as a set of tools. just as a carpenter has tools to cut wood, or just as a musician would have their instrument, a writer has not just words and not just the sounds of words at their disposal, but the entire structure of the language, which is really what grammar is all about. It's about the structure of the language, the internal workings of the language. So there are many ways of using creative writing to explore grammatical concepts. And one way to do this is to take a look at a free resource that we have on our Cozy Grammar website, to which I'll take you right now. We have one more person entering, which is wonderful. So now I'm going to take you to, welcome Akshay. I'm glad you could join us. Here we go. So you should be seeing, there we go. You should be seeing our Cozy Grammar website. And on the Cozy Grammar website, if you go to free resources and you go down to the learning treasure trove, here's a place to explore activities which directly link writing and grammar, particularly creative writing. So the way to go around in our learning treasure trove is to look for a topic that you might wish to explore. In this case, I'm going to go down to creative writing. Clicking on creative writing will take you to all of our free video excerpts, free newsletters, and in fact, Ask Cozy Grammar videos that have in them some creative writing activity. And one that I thought would be very useful, I was talking about adjectives early on. Here is one of our newsletters called A Secret About Adjectives. Here, when you come to this part of the website, you will find a video from Marie explaining what one kind of adjective is, descriptive adjectives. And then down here, there's a video from myself, A Secret About Adjectives. And this contains within it, within the video, it contains a creative writing activity that directly links the use of adjectives to creativity, to how we write a story that's compelling. So I'll leave you to explore. We have many resources like this in our Learning Treasure Trove. You can explore ones and you can get ideas for creative ways of connecting grammar and creativity. And then my third suggestion would be this: find ways to introduce grammar in the context of creativity rather than the context of classrooms, textbooks, and rules. This is a way of making grammar feel more a part of life and more a part of the fun parts of life. And this is really one of the things that inspires me about Marie's approach to teaching grammar. She takes grammar outside the classroom, away from workbooks, and back into the real world where we use it every day. One of the interesting things about grammar is that, in fact, most of us, especially in the languages we speak at home, are already speaking perfectly grammatically without even thinking about it, because we've heard the language around us, we've imbibed it, we've picked it up. And so it can be very helpful, for instance, if we're learning another language, to just be around the language, listen to songs in that language, listen to stories in that language, and you'll sort of pick up by osmosis, if you will, many of the aspects of that language. And again, I think that here the Cozy Grammar Learning Treasure Trove can be very helpful. Because people sometimes think, oh, the Cozy Grammar website, these are courses for students. And of course they are for students, but they're also very useful for parents and for teachers. It's a great place to come to explore ideas that then you can use on your own in your own context. So I encourage you to take a look at the website and the Learning Treasure Trove for more ideas, so that you can make the exploration of grammar a playful and exciting game, when suddenly you'll find people become quite excited and eager to learn grammar. So that's my answer to the question of how can a 10-year-old kid love grammar as much as she's eager to read books?